Okay, for this video, I want to go over a very simple tutorial on how to complete an 1120H tax return for a homeowners association. So homeowners association is very prevalent in the U.S. I think the last count there's maybe close to 400,000 of them. But homeowners associations, they're organized as corporate entities under state law, and they're still required to file a tax return, even though in a lot of cases they might not actually owe any tax. So in this example, I want to go over a very simple 1120H. I've got a couple pieces to work with here. So we've got obviously the return itself, and then I've got a workbook here in Excel for the Homeowners Association's financial statements for the year, right? So the revenues and expenses. And then I've got a slide with some background information here, and then the fact pattern that we're going to be working with. So let's start with this, and then we'll move on to the workbook and the return. Okay, so homeowners tax returns. Again, homeowners associations are required to file a tax return, but they've got a couple options. Okay, so the homeowners association can file one of three returns, basically. So the first one is just a regular corporate tax return. So Form 1120, we're all familiar with that. That's just a regular U.S. corporate income tax return for a domestic corporation. You report all the income and expenses and pay corporate income taxes on a net basis. Okay, so right now the net tax rate in the U.S. is 21% for corporations. The Form 1120H is the other option, which we're going to be going through. This is a specific Form 1120 variant for homeowners associations, right? So Form 1120 has a couple of variants, right? There's ones for RICs, life insurance companies, property and casualty companies, DISCs. So there's a lot of options for Form 1120, and Form 1120H is one of them. And then the third one is a nonprofit or tax-exempt return, Form 990. Okay, so let's talk about the 990. So HOAs, if they can qualify for tax-exempt status, they can apply for it under 501c4. So 501c3 is probably the most popular one that we're familiar with. That's tax-exempt charities. But within 501c, if you go to 501c4, that covers homeowners associations, right? So if the HOA qualifies, it can file for tax-exempt status by submitting a 1023. If the IRS approves, they get it, and then they file 990. The other option, again, is to file the 1120, report all the income and expense, pay taxes. Now, this return, you are still allowed as an HOA to make certain HOA kind of specific adjustments. So you get excess contribution carryovers. You can exclude special assessments for capital improvements from income, things like that. And then the last option here, which is likely the most simple one, and this is where most HOAs fall under, is the 1120H, where if you meet the certain income and expense requirements, you can use an 1120H. So in order to use the 1120H, 60% of your gross income has to be considered exempt, and 90% of your expenses have to be in furtherance of that exempt purpose. If you look at your HOA and you don't meet these conditions, then you can't use the 1120H, you've got to use the 1120. Okay, so that's basically the rule. Now, what's exempt function income? Section 528D3 means any amount received as membership dues, fees, or assessments from the owners of the properties. Okay, so that is your exempt function income. And then the expenditures in connection with the management of those properties, right? So 90% or more of the expenses, so the money you're spending on a yearly basis, 90% or more, have to be related to the acquisition, construction, management, maintenance, and care of the property. All right. So if you're spending a lot of money, let's say you're spending 15% of your total expenses during the year going to non-exempt purposes, then you fail this test and now you have to file the 1120. All right, so let's look at the example fact pattern we've got here. So we've got our fake HOA. It's a Florida corp. And the corporation has not gone down the path of getting that tax-exempt status. So they haven't filed any paperwork. They haven't submitted a 1023 to get a tax exemption under 501c4. The corporation receives owner assessments and only incurs expenses related to the management and maintenance of the property. So they're going to meet this 90% test on the expense side. So no expenses related to non-exempt purposes, and the only amounts of non-exempt function income is going to be bank interest income. Okay, so why is that important? Let's look at the 1120H page first really quickly, and then we'll go to the Excel workbook. You can see here, it's pretty simple. It's really just one page. That's the nice thing about this 1120H form. In the top section here, they just want you to report the gross amounts of the exempt function income and the expenditures that qualify for that 90% test. Down here, this gross income, this is where you report income and expense that are not attributed to these exempt functions. So bank interest income, if you have a brokerage account to invest some of the excess cash and you get dividends, maybe you're invested in a publicly traded partnership, so you get a K1 and you got some allocation of royalties or rents. Those are types of income that are going to be non-exempt, okay? So those amounts get reported here and not up here on lines B and C, okay? And the same thing for deductions. If you have expenses that are more connected to this gross income here, lines 1 through 7, the expenses are reported here and not up here on line C, okay? Now, let's look at the workbook here, because the interest, what we see most often is a separate character that needs to be noted. So here's our very simple profit and loss for the year. So we have revenues, expenses, net income or loss, and these are the totals for the year. So we have our owner assessments, $320,000, and there we can see our bank interest income of $122,000. So that's just interest income that's earned on the savings account. Then we see an interest income here, interest on late assessments. Here's a little nuance that you need to be mindful of. If you earn interest on late assessments, so if you have a homeowner that hasn't paid their dues for months and it's accruing interest on the unpaid balance, that might be interest income, but it's connected with the assessments. It's not regular bank interest. So interest income on late assessments can just be clumped in with just the regular exempt income. It doesn't have to be separately stated as non-exempt. So if we look at the owner assessments here, right, so we have owner assessments and interest totaling $321,600, and then we have our bank interest. That's why we have the $321,600 up here and only the $122,000 of interest down here. We're not including that other $1,600 in interest on the underpayments, okay? So let's go back to the worksheet here. So this is, again, a very simple example as to how we kind of see the breakout. So we had total expenses, capital items. So these are perhaps special assessments that are for capital improvements. Remember, those amounts, if that's a special assessment for a capital improvement and it's not a regular one, it's excluded from income on the 1120H, right? So if they did have something here, we would only be reporting the regular owner assessments, not the capital items, but in this case they don't have any. And then so the interest is going to be non-exempt at $122,000, so that's why the exempt function column here includes everything but the interest. So we have exempt, non-exempt. So our exempt function income, $321,600. Our exempt function expenses, $290,500. So if we look up here, we see those two amounts reported on B and C. So they're exempt function income, total expenditures for purposes of that 90% test. So those are expenses attributed to the exempt functions. And then line D here, it's asking for the total expenditures for the year. Now, remember, in the fact pattern, we don't have any deductions down here connected to the production of gross income that's not exempt. So that's why on line D, it's matching line C because we don't have anything on lines 9 through 15. If, for example, you had some expenses down here, then that would be factored into the total on line D. But in this case, we don't. So it's, again, a very, very simple fact pattern. Frankly, in most cases, this is what you see, right? Most homeowners associations don't have any deductions attributed to non-exempt functions, so that's why lines 9 through 15 are 0. But every fact pattern is different, right? So the HOA you're working with might have something down here, and it might have substantially more gross income. I've seen some HOAs that have a lot of gross income from basically portfolio investments. And so they've got gross income here from portfolio investments, and then perhaps they have a financial planner, a manager that manages that portfolio. Their fees would be down here, right? So if you've got tens of thousands of exempt function income, or sorry, non-exempt function income here, dividends, interest, capital gains, right, Schedule D, you might have a portfolio manager that you pay quarterly to manage that portfolio. Their fees would be down here. Okay, so let's go back to the workbook. So we have our breakout of exempt function, non-exempt function. Now, Form 1120H gets a $100 exclusion. You can see that here towards the bottom on line 18, specific deduction of $100. So when we compute our total taxable income, so gross income minus expenses, 122, then we get a $100 write-off and get to our ultimate taxable income here, $22. Now, the tax rate for these, so timeshares, as it notes here, get a 32% tax rate. So if you had this timeshare box checked, you'd be a timeshare association. These other two get the 30%. So condominium management associations, residential real estate associations, those are going to be paying a 30% tax rate on this form. So $22 times 30% is a $7 tax bill. Now, what I also do with these is I attach a detailed statement showing a breakout of what goes into lines B and C. So it's not required, but I do it just because I think it makes it easier for the company to trace these amounts, and if the IRS were ever to look at it, I suppose it's to provide you a little more information. But you can see here the exempt function income, expenditures related to exempt purposes, and so I have a breakout of each line item as it matches with the financial statements here. So owner's assessments, interest, all the expenses, and so you can do something like this as well and then attach it to the 1120. Again, it's as it notes here, this is not going to be filed with the return. It's for our records only. So the IRS really just wants this page, right? So they just want page 1 here, and obviously any other attachments that might be required. So if you had, for example, capital gains on the sale of some stocks, you would need a Schedule D, right? Or if you had some 4797 items, so the sale of property that's engaged with a trade or business, you might have a 4797 reporting obligation there. So those would be included as well. So, okay, so let me make sure I've covered all those elements. Okay, yeah, so that covers it for this tutorial. Again, pretty straightforward. Like I said, again, this fact pattern is common, but your situation might be different. You might have a financial statement that has significantly more capital items. You might have a greater breakout of what's considered exempt versus not exempt function, income, and expenses. And if that's the case, you need to be a little more careful as to how you break out what is non-exempt versus exempt. A lot of times HOAs will use just kind of rough percentages. So for example, they might say, well, our G&A service is always 10% non-exempt, so they might use a 10% number there. Or you can specially allocate it too. So if you want to be very precise about what expenses are attributed to the non-exempt functions, you can specially allocate those amounts as well. You don't have to use round estimated percentages. Okay, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, obviously, please feel free to leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.